One of the things that would be great is if by sharing this footage of my experience of diving in Pondy for the last few years, other people who live in this area could come to understand how rich our marine life is in Pondy. It's amazing what can be just outside your doorstep. When I was 13 years old, I went for a trip with my dad to the Red Sea. And I remember walking into a gear shop and looking at all the equipment that there was. And I thought, I want this. There were the knives, the regulators, the BCDs, all that equipment. Then my dad said, it's your 13th birthday, why don't you try it out? It must have been in about 2008 that someone came to nature camp and said, we have a dive club in Auroville, do you want to learn to dive? I said, yeah, fantastic. And that was the beginning of the end. Once I started learning to dive, there was no turning back. I grew up in Auroville and I went to law school. And we really believe that everybody's got something to teach everybody. And you're teaching something to your teacher as your teacher is teaching you something. For me, diving has been a continuation of my education. I've learned more about myself, I've learned more about the world, more about physiology and physics through diving. Diving has been a key that has brought me in contact with books and literature and movies and people all over the world, and learning how to service the equipment, take it apart, what happens to us as we go diving. So it's been a window to a new world for me. When you dive, there's many different types of dives you can do. You can go diving to see colorful reefs, you can go diving to see whale sharks, you can go diving to see shipwrecks. What I particularly like about Pondy is that diving here is exploratory. Diving on a dive site where there's 5 people diving the site, not 100 people. When I just started diving, I was diving with this German guy called Chris, and we did a lot of exploratory dives trying to increase our skills in the water. And as divers, you've got some signals to communicate underwater, but you also have a slate to write and so forth. And we ran into this little yellow boxfish, and we looked at it, and we both got so excited because we had each done 50, 60 dives maybe, and we'd never seen something so cute and yet so out of place. It's literally like a dice. It has absolutely no aerodynamics. It doesn't make sense how it swims. Its tail is crooked and it's like finning on the side. And it was fantastic, and we tried to name it underwater, so we decided to call it a yellow boxfish. And when we came back to land and looked it up, it was actually called a yellow boxfish. So that was really exciting. One of the things I enjoy is doing technical diving as well, and that's going deeper than the recreational limits and staying longer. And there, if you're descending to 50 or 60 meters, and you literally have a free fall, and you just, with experience, you learn how to equalize very easily. And you're just almost flying through the water down. And it'll be 2-3 minutes of literally flying, which is an unforgettable experience. But the dives I actually enjoy most are the ones where you go underwater and you literally just kneel in the sand and you watch the reef and you don't move for 45 minutes. And at the end of that, when you are still, everything comes to you. So instead of you going to everything, you let it all accept you, and it comes to you, and you've got these big fish or small fish, they come so close. If you go at the time when the cuttlefish are mating, you're literally swimming in hundreds of cuttlefish around you. Most people know it as calamar because that's what comes on their plate, but it's amazing. Pondy diving is amazing. Unlike a lot of dive destinations in the world, Pondy is not a small reef where you have a bay that is protected. So we have all the migratory species that pass by. There's never a dive in Pondy where I don't see something that I haven't seen before. It reminds me of this famous underwater marine biologist, Pyali, who said that for every 20 minutes he spends below 50 meters, he discovers a new species that has never been discovered before. Now, Pondy is not that exciting, but we still get to see a vast variety of different species. One of the greatest memories I have is jumping in the water and seeing a whale shark. Something that we never thought would pass through Pondicherry. I was wearing a heart rate monitor on my dive computer, and my heart rate went up to 170 something. I was so excited. I was swimming after it at full speed, and I was trying to stay as close to it, and it lasted a minute, 2 minutes, and it was gone. And I was so happy to have seen this magnificent creature, and if I would never have seen one again, I would have been happy. But lo and behold, next year, I saw another one. And this time the initial adrenaline rush was gone. And all I did was I just stayed quiet. And the whale shark circled, and then circled again. And then I started swimming softly, quietly beside him. And literally swimming with 10 centimeters between the shark and myself. I have immense respect for these beautiful creatures, and I think they're so big and so strong and powerful, and yet so graceful and agile through the water. And they eat the smallest things. They eat plankton. When you start diving, breathing underwater is quite troublesome in a way, because you're feeling nervous. It's totally unnatural to go underwater and breathe. Yeah, we're not used to it. We're so used to going underwater and holding our breath. But after a while, you become so comfortable breathing underwater that you just relax. I've done I don't know how many thousand dives, and now it gets to a point where if I'm teaching a course or I'm focused on something else, I may actually start going underwater without having put the regulator in my mouth, because I forget that I need this equipment to breathe underwater. So I'll go till 50 centimeters, I'll be like, oh, I need to get the regulator. I'll put the regulator in my mouth. I think the key to breathing underwater is actually being relaxed, which is why I really like this sport as well. It's because your whole being calms down. And I've had dives where my heart rate goes down to 65, and you calm down. You almost go into like a meditative state, where all your body functions that are not vital just slow down. Your mind quiets down. Everything just becomes peaceful. And I think that's something that really attracts me to diving. This utter peace. I remember doing this dive, which was filled with hundreds of different kinds of jellyfish. And as I was looking at each one, and they've got lights going through them, and they're transparent, and how they're moving through the water, I realized this is where George Lucas got all his inspiration from. These things are amazingly beautiful. As an underwater photographer, this has become one of the things I really enjoy taking photos of, because it's transparent, and yet it's there, and they're so important to the survival of the ocean. Diving is a team sport. We work together, we try to learn from each other, and we try to understand different things from each other. One of the key members in this team is the boat captain. They're the ones that take you out, get you safely there. If you do a drift dive, they pick you up and make sure that you get back on the boat and that you don't get lost out at sea. So they're an integral part of the team, especially when you're doing exploration or doing push dives, tech dives. I remember this one day we went out for a dive. It was getting a little choppy, but it was still pretty calm. We got in the water, went down, come back an hour later, and the captain is freaking out. The waves were 2 meters out there, like 15 kilometers out. You don't see shore. You don't know even which direction shore is if you don't use a compass. You're out there. You could be going to Sri Lanka for all you know. And the captain, this is the only time I've ever seen the captain go, shore is there, and I'm looking at my GPS and I'm looking at my compass and saying, no, I think it's there. I show him the compass and the GPS and he goes, that's the way to the shore, And you're going up and down in this little boat. This boat's literally 10 meters? Smaller than the whale shark. And you're trying to get back to land. And no matter how comfortable you feel in the water and you can swim, you're there, totally removed from terra firma, where you feel safe, And then you come to the harbor and you've got these 2-3 meter waves, and the captain spends 5 minutes before getting into the harbor and he's looking at the waves and he's timing the waves, and then he says, now! And he puts the engine full speed and he goes in, and you can see the fear in his eyes that any of these waves, if it hits us in the wrong angle, it pushes the boat and we're done for it. And the joy, the relief in his face when you actually cross and you're back, And then the next day we go for a repeat. Any diver who asks you about a dive will always ask you, what was the visibility? Now, Pondy has pretty decent visibility. Having great visibility on a day is the same as if you've been looking at a room and there's been 15-watt light bulbs on. So you've seen this section of the room, that section, and this section, and suddenly somebody switches on a 1,000-watt light bulb, and you see the whole room for the first time as an entirety. So that's an amazing feeling. I mean, jumping in the water and from the surface seeing the bottom at 20 meters and seeing that rock that is on the southwest and the rock that is on the east, and all these rocks in relation to each other in the reef, really gives you a feeling of the reef. Pondy is legendary for having 3 days a year amazing visibility right at the shore, where when you walk into the water, right where the water breaks, it's crystal clear. And on those days when it's like that, we run to the pier, the Pondy pier. We jump in the water there, and it's literally 6 meters deep, and it is full of life. And it's such a beautiful thing to see, because on an average day, if you go diving there, you pretty much can't see or watch. So it's really wonderful to be able to suddenly see a reef that you've never been able to see otherwise. In scuba diving, we get to see the fish, we get to enjoy all these wonderful spaces and reefs. And at the same time, there's a part of us, or a section of society, that is destroying that, So building artificial reefs is a very good way to give back to the ocean. When you build a reef and you get to a certain size of mass structure underwater, it becomes a safe haven for juvenile fish to grow to a certain size. The reef that was built in Pondicherry was built by a collaboration between the local dive center, some of the guys from the ashram, some of the guys from Auroville. We worked together to build something, and we did it by ourselves without any funding from the government or anybody. We learned about it through trial and error. We found a lot of concrete, started loading it on a boat, and dumping it in these metal structures that we made. Now, the first time we did it, we thought, we'll just do it slowly. But the problem was that within a few days, it was full of life. So then we had to start dumping the rocks 10-15 meters away from the dive site. Go down, take off our fins, and pick up the rocks and carry them to the dive site. Because if we would drop them on the reef, we would kill what had come to live there. I spent 10 years studying art in the pyramids, so aesthetics is definitely something that I feel strongly about. But when you build a reef, it's a different process. The aesthetic comes with time. When you put something there, you're actually just putting a canvas for nature to create beauty on. And the important thing is that you don't throw garbage. You don't want to throw a car that is full of oil. But throwing a car is great. There's nothing better than metal and things for stuff to grow. But you got to make sure to clean the car. You got to take out all the fuel, the oil, the wires that are going to be toxic, whatever else is dangerous. Bottles are actually fantastic because bottles create small holes where little fish can hide in and they can go in and out. Old pipes, not PVC, but if you have the ceramic pipes, are also great because it's again somewhere for the fish to hide. What we try to do when we create artificial reefs is create a sanctuary for these animals to hide from the trawlers actually. Trawlers are these big boats that what they do is they drop a huge net behind them with weights and they literally just rake the whole bottom of the ocean. They destroy the reef, they catch anything on the bottom, even stuff that they're not going to eat. They take it all up. 80% is not going to be sold. It dies and it gets thrown right back in. It's really, really sad. There is a lot of bycatch in today's fishing industry. And we have to start paying attention to where we get our food from and what is the side effect of what we're eating. We're eating maybe a small barracuda and we think, oh great, nothing wrong with this. But how many other fish have died so that we can catch this barracuda? In regard to fishing in Pondy, there is a 1-month ban every year. And during that 1 month, diving becomes every day more and more amazing. And certain dive sites at the end of this month will literally have close to 1 million fish. It's like, it's out of the movies. You're swimming and you've got schools of barracuda, you've got schools of silvery moon and jacks and sometimes tunas and God, anything you can imagine, from small little fish to nice big fish. And then, from one day to the next, it's empty. It's the same like if you go... I've gone to a few places in Auroville after there was a forest fire. And you come and everything's dead and burned. That's how it feels underwater after a trawler has passed. One of the things I would really hope is that people would see what amazing marine life there is actually here in Auroville and Pondy. That is not just sand. No, there is reef, there is hundreds and thousands of fish and species out there that live there and call it home. If anybody ever wants to go out there and see it for themselves, talk to me. If you want to learn more about it, talk to me. The ocean is an integral part of our safe existence on this planet. I hope that by the small efforts that we make and the small efforts that people all throughout the world are making to protect the reef, that there will be mantas, there will be whale sharks, there will be all these amazing creatures for our future generations.